Hello everybody, Brad the Guitarologist here. Today we're going to get to all the latest Gibson news, and there's a lot of it. But first I want to touch upon the new news coming out of Heritage Guitars. According to this article, Heritage Guitars has fired 10 of their employees, and 4 of them walked out in protest, so a total of 14 employees now do not work at Heritage that did work at Heritage Guitars. As you know, Heritage Guitars is located in Kalamazoo and in the same factory that Gibson used to be located when they were in Kalamazoo. The whole shtick with Heritage Guitars was that they were continuing to make guitars in the same manner they were made in Kalamazoo whenever Gibson was there. For a long time, this has been the selling point of Heritage Guitars, but under new ownership, they have wanted to move into more modernized ways of building the guitars, such as CNC machines, and apparently the employees were resistant to this sort of change, and therefore some of them were fired. The employees did release a statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you guys can go to the article, which will be linked down in the description, and read the whole thing. But essentially, the employees were dissatisfied with the new company, saying they were incompetent and that the working conditions were not up to their standards. And they were also upset, apparently, with the moves to bring in CNC machines and change the way that the guitars had been built since basically the 1980s, whenever Heritage Guitars began. This company that bought Heritage Guitars was also in talks with Rolling Stone and another company about making the old Gibson factory there in Kalamazoo a tourist destination. There's no real word as to whether or not that plan will still see fruition, but according to the company, those plans are still on track. Also in Gibson news, Gibson has also laid off some employees. Well, laid off employees in this instance, so I guess they could get their jobs back if things turn around. But as for right now, some of the more senior, more well-skilled employees in the custom shop have been laid off, have lost their jobs. 15 employees, according to a couple of articles. This signals something very scary, actually. If they're laying off the most senior, most skilled employees, then you have to ask the question, is quality really paramount at Gibson at this point? Also on Gibson news, it's been reported on at least one website that a Chinese consortium is looking into buying Gibson. So you have to ask yourself, what's a Chinese company going to do with Gibson if they end up with the company? Also, it's kind of been reported widely now, and I'm a bit late to the game here, but you probably have seen the articles where Henry Juskowitz, it appeared at least as if he was blaming retailers for the downfall of Gibson. It has been suggested by some other YouTubers that he is in the wrong on this, and the reason he's in the wrong is because, you know, he kind of compared Gibson guitars to an Apple store. When you walk in an Apple store and you can see all of the products and you can put your hands on all of them, he was complaining that a lot of his products were way up off the floor and hanging on the wall, and retail shop is not a very friendly place to be and to hang out and all this sort of thing. Well, I can kind of see what he's talking about, but having been the manager of a music store in the past, I can kind of see the other side of it as well. Gibson doesn't own those guitars. Those guitars have been purchased by the store itself. And oftentimes Gibson has a real stranglehold on dealers and is very demanding as to what you have to buy in order to maintain your dealership. Basically, what it amounts to is, unless you have really deep pockets, you are not going to be a Gibson dealer in the year 2018. Unless you have pockets the size of a Guitar Center or a Sweetwater or Sam Ash or something like that, the likelihood of you being a Gibson dealer are very minimal. They make you buy guitars oftentimes that are way off of the beaten path. They force you to buy certain things and to carry a certain number of guitars in stock of each type, and you just don't sell that many of all the different types. So what ends up happening is dealers get stuck with a lot of things that they have to kind of blow out. And it doesn't hurt Gibson, it hurts the retailer. So there's another side to that story as well that Juskowitz is just simply not touching upon, and basically has his head in the sand on. So I did see a suggestion by at least one other YouTuber that what they could do is give sample guitars on the floor. So when you walk into a retail shop, you would actually have samples that you could pick up, and they're not really the for sale items, but you would pick that guitar up and play it and then say, oh yeah, I want one of these, and then somebody would go in the back and bring one out. that really wouldn't be feasible because, for one, all guitars are kind of different. You kind of have to put your hands on them. Unless you have really, really high quality control and really really tight tolerances on CNC machines, and if you put everything built on a machine and it's PLEKed in the exact same way or whatever, they're all going to play different. They're all going to sound slightly different. They're going to have different wood in them. So most guitar players understand this, and they want to play the actual guitar that they're prospectively buying, not some sample guitar and then let's look at a guitar later. And plus the expense of, I mean, how many retail shops are there in the United States alone? And you're gonna put, you know, sample guitars in each one of them. That's a very expensive proposition. However, that could be done using some of the B stock that I've been complaining about that's ending up in dumpsters, that's being smashed. Why not take some of those instruments and say, okay, instead of smashing that guitar, we're gonna keep that on our books, and we're going to call that your floor model for that particular model. Just keep it in your store, use that one as your floor model. That way your other ones don't get scratched and dent, and we'll just write it off for you. So that's one possible solution of how to prevent some of this stuff from getting in the dumpsters. Speaking of dumpsters, back on the Heritage, one of the complaints of the employees was that over 300 guitars had been destroyed in an effort to increase quality control. And the employees were complaining that their quality control standards were unfeasible from the perspective of a handmade instrument. If you're making something by hand, it's a different thing than if you're making things, again, with machines on CNC, you know, and then they're being PLEKed to set up. And if everything's being made on a machine, yes, you can have sort of a factory level quality control thing where you have, you know, fewer small blemishes and fewer of the little mistakes, the little quirks that make something handmade. You know, and this extends to anything that's handmade. You can get a handmade car, and it's going to be bespoke. The parts are going to be made for that car. It's not going to be as if you have a press that's stamping out parts over and over again, the same thing. So things are different when they're handmade, and according to these employees, they destroyed about 300 or more guitars in an effort to try to raise quality control standards that they claimed were just impossible to meet. So anyway, that's the news for today. Hope you guys have enjoyed this video. Please hit subscribe below if you haven't already. Also hit the bell to get all notifications. And for now, y'all take care.